Hello everybody, it is I, Brian the Pirate, and today I want to talk about how much I love Path of Exile 2, but hate rare monsters. Oh, Brian, hate's a strong word, you're right. It is. Now before we get too deep into it, I do want to make it very clear, I do thoroughly enjoy Path of Exile 2. I have no doubt that this year, it will be at least a contender for Game of the Year, especially given GGG's precedent for listening and adjusting things to player feedback. However, there are two reasons I think rare monsters are bad in Path of Exile 2. Now, this video is technically the second part of a two-part thing that I'm doing. I'm going to publish it first, however, I'm recording it first as well. The other video is going to be about like my likes and dislikes outside of this specific topic. I'll put a link in the video description if you want to watch that one as well. And once it's uploaded, it will also be the end card. But this video is specifically about the thing I probably dislike the most, the one thing I would really like to see change. To set the scene a little bit, some of you may be familiar with something in Path of Exile 1 called Archnemesis. The Archnemesis system was a revamp of rare monsters, or the rare monster system specifically, and it was pretty much universally hated by the community. So much so, I think it was out for less than a month before basically being rolled back, and GGG made an apology. One of the reasons it was hated was one modifier on the monster, so you know, under then the health bar would say what modifiers they got. One modifier would actually basically be a combination of several modifiers. So if you had something that had one or two modifiers, you're actually fighting something with like 4 to 6. In a lot of instances, especially in Path of Exile 1, which is a far faster game to blast through in comparison to Path of Exile 2, it meant that you would spend sometimes several minutes just fighting one rare monster because the combination of modifiers that it had acquired made killing it borderline impossible. And it feels to me that with Path of Exile 2, the developers have gone, okay, we want the combat to be more engaging, we want it to be slower, we want people to be a bit more methodical with how they kill things. We don't expect players to just delete the screen with one button press like they do in Path of Exile 1. So maybe we can slip in Archnemesis 2.0, and that isn't fun. So let me give you some more specific examples. This has become a lot more apparent with the current build that I'm playing. I've made a couple of builds already that delete screens, so I don't even realize the rares are there to even be aware of what modifiers they have. But I'm also conscious of the fact that GGG are probably going to be coming out with the nerf bat, lowering the pace or slowing down the pace at which we are currently able to blast content, especially at endgame, with the more broken builds. So I'm currently playing a snipe build, and it's made me very aware of how rarely I can actually use snipe against rare monsters. I feel like I'm not able to fight the monster because I'm too busy fighting random number generators and praying that I'm not going to get a wombo combo of bullshit. One map, for instance, I had 4 rares in a row, 4 rares, and each rare had either lightning mirage, volatile plants, or volatile crag. All 3 of these are homing missiles that explode. And I kid you not, all 4 of those rares back to back had a combination of at least 2 of those. Now, for those of you who've played snipe, you need to stand still. you need some prep time. But Brian, you just need to time it right. Wait for them to explode. Which, sure, if it was just one, but it's almost never just one. And I think that's exacerbated by the fact that the modifier pool seems to be quite shallow. So you very frequently see the same modifiers. Maybe that's just some weird placebo effect I'm having, but I feel like there just aren't that many rare modifiers. Another combination, which truly baffles me, is temporal bubble on a hasted monster. I had a warthog thing, which are already fairly fast, have relatively high stun, and have a charge, and it had temporal bubble, and it was hasted, and it had like the stun modifier, which meant I couldn't kill it because I couldn't get away from it. And then if I decided to face tank it, it would basically just stun lock me. But then you might be saying, well, get more stun threshold, Brian. Sure, but you're forgetting something. If you die once, you fail the map, and if you don't kill all the rares, you have to abandon the map, which means having stun threshold or high stun threshold becomes mandatory on the off chance you might come across that bullshit combination or similar. Another modifier I absolutely despise is, I think it's Shroud Walker. So imagine you're a two-handed melee character or someone using snipe or someone using an attack that has a long wind-up time. Now in prep for this, you freeze the monster or heavy stun it because that would make sense in combination with a skill that has a long wind-up time. You then take aim, you draw your string back on your bow, you let loose your arrow, and it's gone. It's disappeared. It's behind you, whilst heavy stunned. That is an insanely frustrating experience. And then again, you combine that with homing missiles and things like that that are happening at the same time. It literally just renders skills that you've built around useless, which subsequently means that you end up being pigeonholed into only doing very specific types of builds, and you will end up avoiding basically anything with a long wind-up time because there's a chance that you will have to give up a map or die on a map because that skill is just simply not viable against one random rare. As I said, this is exacerbated by the fact that you can only die once, or you just simply have to abandon the map, rather than in PoE 1, if you come across something that you simply can't kill, you can just move on and do the rest of the map. Now, the solution to that specific problem is implementing combinations that can't occur, I suppose. Like, if it has temporal bubble, maybe not let it also have haste, because that is bullshit. Tweaking things like the Shroud Walker stuff so it can't blink out of existence whilst it's heavy stunned or frozen, because that doesn't make sense. If it has a homing missile ability, maybe don't give it the other two homing missile abilities, or design any more homing missile abilities. Jonathan, I've come up with a new rare modifier. Oh yeah? Interesting. What does it do? So it's this homing missile that will chase the player down and explode, but this one is green. Brilliant! My second problem with rares, and this one is very, it's a bit more idealistic, it's a bit more copium, I would say, than anything, and that's the fact that they don't do anything more interesting compared to Path of Exile 1. Obviously with Path of Exile 2, a lot of things are evolved. The combat especially has evolved. It's a lot more methodical, it's a lot more engaging, and I love that. I genuinely love the new pace and the new expectations of the player when it comes to the combat. And one of my favorite parts about Path of Exile 2 currently is the unique bosses, because it feels like I'm fighting the boss. I'm fighting their attacks, not random modifiers. I don't want random modifiers deleted from the game, to be clear, but I'm fighting the mob, the boss. And even in the campaign, you've got the mini bosses where they've given rares different attacks that they don't usually have. Those actually felt quite good. Whereas rare monsters in mapping is just, here's an elite monster with more health, more damage, and then the random modifiers. Also, you don't know it's there unless it happens to have an aura of some type. Why are they not more visually distinct? So in that regard, the solution is I would just like them to be a bit more interesting. I want them to do more than just have random magic abilities that just go off on their own sentient will whilst the monster is stunned. I want them to have attacks that I wouldn't expect from a zombie or a skeleton with a shield, and suddenly it pulls out a bow and shoots me in the face. Things like that. You know, I want it to do things that are more to do with the actual creature rather than just RNG. Now, I don't think any of these points that I've made are particularly contentious. I hope that I've managed to articulate them well to you, the viewer. If you think I'm off base, however, leave a comment, explain. Let's talk it out. Maybe I'm just being silly, and I should delete all the monsters before they have chance to attack me, obviously. Or perhaps you've had similar experiences and you want to share them with me in the community. Leave your comments below and you'll find me in the replies. If you liked this video and you want to see more like it, I would highly recommend subscribing, dinging the bell, maybe giving the video a like while you're down there, because it helps with the algorithm gods. I also stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Brian the Pirate, and I have a Discord server full of fellow Path of Exile enjoyers if you'd like to check that out. All of that in the description below. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Farewell. I'll remember you. Hello, everybody, and this is I, Brian the...